welcome to this week's episode, and really fantastic for me that we're now doing some video as well. So people have asked for video, so there I am supplying some video as well. And of course this will be turned into our wonderful weekly podcast as well, so B2B Sales Pro. So what I'm doing this week is we're carrying on from the great training that we've been looking at in terms of the telesales process. So we've been looking at opening, probing, positioning, closing, objection handling, and then the final close. So where we've got to in this wonderful journey that we're doing is we're now looking at closing and objection handling. So this to me is really exciting. This is the bit of the sale that I really like. This is where you actually know if you're going to cross that line or not. So when we've done all of the positioning, and obviously before that we've done the probing, what we're looking to do now is we're actually looking now to do that close. You'll notice that we close before we do the objection handling, because if we've done our probing and our positioning correctly, we should be able to ask for the sale. When we ask for the sale, we can ask it with a closed question. And then from there, we can either get the sale or we can actually then look if there are any objections that we need to handle. So when we look to close, one of the key things about closing the sale, be it face-to-face or be it on the telephone, is you need to close the sale. You need to ask for the sale. So when you've done your positioning about your product, so we've got this fantastic service for you, in my eyes it's going to cost you X per month. And what you can do then is you can do it two ways. You can push it back to the person, so you can push it back to the decision maker. And you can go, it's going to cost X, and this is what it's going to do for your business. And then you can go, how does that sound to you? So if you go with those magic words, how does that sound to you, then that person has to say something. It's not a yes or no, because it's not a closed question. It's an open question. So that could be the time where you actually flush out any of the objections. The person could say, that sounds great. The person could say, I'm not sure. So if it's not sure, we can go into objection handling. What you can also do though, is if you want to do the closed sale, you want to use a closed question, is you can go straight in with a sale. So it's going to cost you £1,600 a month. And for that, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. And then from that, you can go, would you like to start on the 1st of September? So would you like to? So it's going to be a yes or a no. So in terms of that, the person can go yes, or the person can go no. You can also say, shall I go ahead with that? Closed question, shall I go ahead with that? It is a question and it's closed. It's a yes or a no. So if you get on and ask those questions, you can start to see where you're going. The key thing to remember when you ask the close question is to remain silent. So ask the question and then remain silent. So how I like to be able to work with this is, how does that sound to you? Or shall I go ahead with that? And then it's silence. When you go to being silent and you pull back on everything, you put the onus on that person to actually have to say something. So in this, for me, in terms of sales, silence is golden. So that to me is one of the best ways to close, because you're forcing the person through silence to actually say something. You're not going to be the person who actually says the next thing. From that point, there may be some objections. So somebody might go, not sure, I want to think about it. They might say the price is too high, but you start to get the objections coming through. So the best way that I look at in terms of objection handling is to welcome them. So if somebody says, not sure on the price. Okay, thank you for that feedback, that's great. What are you not sure about on the price? Well, what am I actually getting? It's a bit too expensive. Okay, so let's break it down, let's have a look. So you start to get into that already, start to welcome the objection, and then you can try and drill it down a little bit more to find out what the true objection is. What you can also look at is a lot of people say, need some time to think about it. So from my perspective, perfectly understandable, know that you'll need time to think about. What exactly is it that you want to think about in the proposal? So again, we're looking at that objection. Somebody might go, I want to think more about the price. Okay, so let's look a little bit more at the price. So what was it about the price that you're not sure about? So again, we're looking at the objections. So the objections to me are normally when people are looking for more information. People want more information. That's what I normally look at with an objection. So there are many different objections, but it's normally about price, it's normally about time, it's normally about other people in the decision-making process. And it's sometimes key that when you're probing, you can ask those questions as well. So for me, when you're looking at the close and then you do the objection handling, you can then do the final close. So what you can do is if somebody says, not sure on the price, so what exactly is it about the price that we need to have a look at? Well, it could be this, it could be that. Okay, so let's have a look at that now. So the price is going to be this, and actually that equates to £5 a day. Does that now sound as expensive? Well, no, actually, when you break it down like that, it doesn't. Okay, so shall I sign you up for next week? Shall I sign you up for the 1st of October? Shall I sign you up for 10 days' time? You then are asking that closed question to close the sale. You might find that you get another objection, and that's fine, so welcome the objection. The most important thing to remember is when you're selling, the person buying is trying to compute things very, very quickly. The best way that I can probably equate this is you can go into a shop, you go in to buy some milk. You go in, you take a basket, you put the milk in, you then go and buy something else and something else and something else. You get to the queue, there's a fair few people ahead of you. You then actually start to go through that process of going, well, do I actually need this? Do I actually need that? And when you go through that process as well, it's really key that you can understand why that process is happening. So sometimes you also need to remember that in the buying process for the person that you're selling to. They've got to make a decision and they'll be going through that process. Another great way is to look at clothes shopping. A lot of the time people will go in and buy clothes and they'll start to buy lots of other things they don't really need. They're in that queue and they're going through, do I really need it? So they're trying to justify the sale to themselves. Remember, you will get that in sales. So you need to make sure that that person is comfortable with the sale. You need to make sure they're comfortable with what they're getting, and then you can close the sale. So close the sale there and then from that point, you can then send all the information out. Now, the one thing I always look at is a lot of the times people say make a commitment, get somebody to sign something there and then. For me personally, that's not really the way that I sell. It might be the way others sell, but for me, mine is much more of a consultative sale. So I know that people will have a little bit of thinking time, and I've said that's the price, I'll send everything over to you. I'll send it over to them. I may not hear from a day or two, so I'll follow up again. I'll guarantee there have been one or two thought processes going in that particular timescale, so I'm there to answer those questions. Those people that sign up on the day, I do sometimes wonder if people feel they've been forced into that. So that's my own personal opinion. Others, absolutely fine. If you wish to do that, it's entirely up to you. But my own personal one is to give people that little bit of space, and then you're operating in a very trustworthy, very open way, giving people that little bit of extra time to go through the justification process. Once they're through that, you've sent everything to them anyway. All they need to do then is sign. And if they don't sign, there's an objection, there's a reason, and you can counter that. If ultimately they don't sign, then either your sales process was wrong or you didn't qualify them correctly. And that can happen in a lot of times. So you do also need to be able to look at your process and make sure it's really, really solid. But for me, the close should be there and then because the person said yes. You then can carry on forward, you send all the paperwork out, and then you're very much in, we're starting. Make sure you get everything back and then get underway and work through that process. So I really hope you've enjoyed this video which is part of the podcast series. Those of you listening on the podcast will hear exactly the same as this. So we've been able to look through this series in terms of opening, probing, positioning, going for that first close, objection handling, and then doing the final close. So I hope you've been able to look at that as a really simple process that you can use in your sales, particularly when you're on the phone selling, but also use it in your own sales as well. So next week, I want to bring you some even more interesting ways of selling and want to drill down on things a little bit more. Going to look a little bit more at technology and how we can use that. But also make sure you tune into my other podcast now that's being launched, which is Sales Tips from the Potting Shed. Going to be outside, going to be in the garden, going to be in the veg patch, actually seeing where there's some relationship between gardening and sales. And I know there's a lot of you out there who are watching, who are farmers or hunters, and there's some great things in sales as well. And do remember, you can tune in now on YouTube. You can have these videos across the social media platforms. You can also tune in to podcasts, and you can have those on Spotify and all the other platforms that are there as well. So do tune in next week.